Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the English news from Djibouti channels. Here are the headlines of our edition tonight. And the main topics of tonight are: the head of state sponsored the signature of framework agreements between Djibouti and Oman. On continental news, the ex-president of Erdogan condemns at the persecution. Welcome if you join us. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, today received at the Presidential Palace a high-level delegation from the State of Oman, led by the President of the State General Reserve Fund of Sultan of Oman, Abdulsalam bin Mohammed. The Omani delegation includes the head of the transport and logistics sections of the fund, Mr. Sam, and the director of the Foreign Office of the Republic of Tanzania, Mohammed Al-Duqi. The talks focus on economic and trade relations between the two countries and the way and mean to activate joint corporations on the basis of the strategic positions of the two countries. For his part, the President of the Republic, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, welcomed the President of the Oman General Reserve Fund and the delegation accompanying him, and ensure us of our country's willingness to promote cooperation with this sister country, particularly in the economic and commercial fields. Attend this meeting the Minister of Equipment and Transport, Mr. Abdul Qadir Mohammed Musa Hilim, as well as Abu Bakr Omar Hadi, President of the Authorities of Poor and Free Zone, and the Secretary General of the Presidency, Mr. Mohammed Abdullahi Wais. After this meeting, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, sponsored the signing ceremony of a framework agreement signed by Mr. Abu Bakr Omar Hadi, President of the Authority of Poor and Free Zone, and Mr. Abdulsalam Mohammed Al-Murshidi, President of the General Reserve Fund of the State of Oman. Under this agreement, the fund will operate in the port, logistics and transport sector in Djibouti, in particular for the extensions of the Dorali container terminal. This agreement follows several months of negotiations between the Republic of Djibouti and the Sultan of Oman, according to the President of the Authority of Poor and Free Zone. The initiative reflects the common desire of both countries to promote bilateral relations and economic and trade cooperation. The Minister of Transport and Equipment and the Secretary General of the Presidency attended the signing ceremony, as well as the delegation of the General Reserve Fund in the State of Oman. The CEO of the General Reserve of the Fund of the State of Oman expressed his sincere thanks to the President of the Republic, the warm welcome he received, and this delegation. Abdulsalam bin Mohammed say in a statement on national television that his talks with the President focused on bilateral relations between Djibouti and Oman, particularly with regard to the commercial and economic sector. The trade relation between Djibouti and Oman very old, and today we seek to reactivate these relations to realize the interests of both countries, add Mr. Abdulsalam. He also said that he praised the strategic location enjoyed by the Republic of Djibouti and the State of Oman, commenting on the content of the agreement reached with the head of the Poor and the Free Zone Authority. He explained that the fund intends to finance a number of projects in the field of poor infrastructure and free zone in Djibouti. He highlighted the tremendous capacity and infrastructure of the Djibouti port, which have made the country a regional hub and economic gateway to countries in the region. For his part, the President of the Port and Free Zone Authority, Mr. Abu Bakr Omar Hadi, confirmed in an interview with the national television that the signing of the framework agreement between Djibouti and the State of Oman was the culmination of important debates held by two parts in the last few months. Mr. Abu Bakr Umar Hadi explained that this step reflected the importance of Djibouti's positions and is part of our country's effort to become a regional hub in the areas of logistics, port, and shipping. A ceremony of inauguration of the National International School of Judicial Police Practice Development under the patronage of the Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, took place yesterday at the Camp Sheikh Musa of Pika 23. Our country thus has an international school for the improvement of the practice of the judiciary police. This school is specialized in the field of judicial police and technical and scientific police and all related fields. The International School of Judicial Police Practice Development is located in Camp Sheikh Musa at Pika 23.
عينا شعلك النوسي دبا عروسة بنقو وقرشو اللي قبل كيو الكاتيري بسي درحها في ماتي عدالة عيسى الله إليك يقالوا هو أمير يحيي الكلمات قدور صلينا الكلمات قدور صلينا الكلمات قدور صلينا
ودونشها على مساركيسي هذا كوكو العلي دورجت عادل كان لقبته حد العصبي يخبر وقوعها نوبليه عكلمان كدر سنينا عكلمان كدر سنينا عكلمان كدر سنينا ودونشها على مساركيسي هذا كوكو العلي دورجر عادل كان لقبته حد العصبي يخبر وقوعها نوبليه عكلمان كدر سنينا عكلمان كدر سنينا عكلمان كدر سنينا أخوتي سعانا لغلمي أدون كاتلكيني عاشقي عدالي مدوغ صوتغي عكلمان كدر سنينا
عينا شعلك النوسي دبا عروسة بنقو وقرشو.
Cette école est dédiée à la formation des enquêteurs.
After that was greeted by the Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, Colonel Zakaria Hassan Adam, for his part the guest of honor at the ceremony, which is none other than the Ambassador of France in Djibouti, Mr. Christophe Guillou, said in his speech that faced with the challenges posed to the police forces of criminal groups more and more organized, the creation of an international school of judicial police practice improvement is a determined and joint response of all actors. Several speakers followed one another at the restroom of this event to speak. The most outstanding of them, the Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden, in his speech paid a vibrant tribute to the President of the Republic's Excellency, Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, Supreme Chief of the Armies, of his support for all movement so that this school is born. Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden took this opportunity to thank by name all the people whose help and advice were valuable for this project, including Prime Minister Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed and the Minister of Defense in charge of relations with the Parliament, Mr. Ali Hassan Bahdoun. The Prime Minister congratulated all those who participated in the realization of this international school, and especially Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden, Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie. The Prime Minister then stressed that he is happy and proud to share with the Gendarmerie this unique and important moment when Djibouti see the creation of its first national and international school with a regional vocation. Half after a speech and graduation and signing of 18 judicial police officials from 12 countries. The Prime Minister has cut the traditional ribbon that marked the official inauguration of the international school for the improvement of the practice of judiciary police. He then issued the symbolic plate of EI-3PG, and this is the representance of the Chief of Staff of the National Gendarmerie, Colonel Zakaria Hassan Aden, member of the government and civilian and military guest partner. The International School for the Improvement of the Practice of Judicial Police has the following infrastructure: a common and administration building, a multimedia library building, as well as a scenario block, 4 infrastructure rooms, 4 laboratories for technical and scientific police, and in serving sleep, cafeteria, restaurant. The EI-3PG will have financial autonomy, as it will have a budget that must support the operation of all expense of the school. The infrastructure teaching are from the ranks of the National Gendarmerie, the National Police, and other forces responsible for internal security of the country. Training will also be provided by infrastructure from the French International Corporation directed. Other directors, other national and international speakers and experts may be invited on request to take part in teaching within his Seder school. The conference of the respective chairman of the outstanding committee and parliamentary groups was held at the premises of the National Assembly. The meeting took place as part of the start of the third ordinary session of the 8th legislature. It was for the participant to set the agenda and the date of the next public meeting. At this conference, the government was represented by the Prime Minister, Mr. Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed, the President of the National Representation, the member of the office, the chairperson of the Standing Committee and Parliamentary Group also took part in this meeting. The first and foremost dealt with the items on the agenda, which are transmitted to the relevant Standing Committee. 5 bills are being, namely Bill number 41, 9th and 8th, adopting the financial account of Djibouti International Airport for the 2050 financial year, tabled in the Parliament of 50 January 2019, adopting the bill of number 42, the financial account of Djibouti international law. About the bill number 3, the law of 43, adopting the national strategy for social protecting. Other bill, the law number 44 on the law on social and solidarity economy, and tablet parliamentarian, and draft law strategic direction of development and promotions of the tourism in the Djibouti. Finally, the Conference of Presidents then addressed the date of the next public meeting dedicated to government matters. Debate is scheduled for Thursday. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, received Thursday in the meeting room of the FAID a strong delegation of executive business for national security of the United States, led by the retired Norton Stewards. This delegation was introduced to the minister by the United States Ambassador to Djibouti, Mr. Larry Anglais. The main staff of the minister took part in this important meeting. These include the Secretary General, the Director of Bilateral Relations, and the Director of Communications. The relation of friendship and cooperation between the two were discussed during this meeting. The discussions focused on strengthening the strategic partnership that the two nations maintain in a nerve way of business sector, particularly through the promotion of U.S. investment in Djibouti. During this meeting, they discussed recent development in the political and security situations in the Horn of Africa region. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Corporations, spokespersons of the government, Mr. Mahmoud Ali Yusuf also received Mr. Thomas Anders, Under Secretary of the United States Navy. The letter was accompanied by his collaborators and the United States Ambassador to Djibouti, Mr. Larry André listed took part this important meeting. The main collaborators of the minister, these include the Secretary General, the Director of Bilateral Relations, and the Director of Communication. The meeting allowed the two interlocutors to congratulate themselves on the excellent bilateral relation existing between our two countries and to address both the bilateral and regional issues of mutual interest, in particular the question of peace and security in the Horn of Africa. The National Agency for the Disabled has welcomed, in the framework of the partnership and the support to the mobilizations, the founding president of the Global Rainbow Foundation on a mission of observations in Djibouti from 17 to 20 March. This observations mission is part of the support and expertise to be provided for the care of people with disabilities, to strengthen and concretize the cooperation links between the agency and the NGO. The Director General of the National Agency for Disabled, Mr. Duali Said Mahmoud, has initiated a partnership agreement with Mr. Armogum, President Founder of the Global Rainbow Foundation, this Wednesday in the presence of the Minister of Interior, Mr. Hassan Omar Mohammed, and the OEM Chief of Mission, Mrs. Lalini, in the meeting room in the National Agency of the People with Disabilities. The Director General of the National Agency, Mr. Duali Said, stressed that this convention's area of cooperation will be jointly identified. This concerns the promotions and implementation of an inclusive education program through training program for professional support of teaching materials and adapted technology, the establishment of orthopedic equipment, and in particular strengthening access to adequate justice services for people with a disability. He said in support that the Director of General Agency with a disabled person, Mr. Duali Said Mahmoud, the Minister of Higher Education and Research, Dr. Nabil Mohammed Ahmed, met yesterday morning with young nurse of Regional Institute of Health and Social Training for the French Red Cross. The meeting took place at the ICES in the presence of the Director of Higher Education and Health Science, Nadira Abdullah Yahya, and her close collaborator. The trains will carry out 4 to 5 week internship in Djibouti in order to become aware for the importance of their profession as nurse and careers, and especially the social and health side to better serve the population. Trains number 8, including nurse and health care aides, will be distributed to the various hospitals in Djibouti city. Train Mr. Crystal welcomed the warm well of Djibouti and thanked the head of hospitals and the various health departments of their collaboration. The Minister of Higher Education during his speech, he urged the young auxiliary health trains to always be with their patient and of course the whole populations. The Minister of Muslims Affairs, Culture and Waqf, Mr. Momin Hassan Barre, received this Wednesday in his office a large delegation from Turkish Religious Affairs. The members of the delegation were introduced to the minister by the Turkish ambassador to the Republic of Djibouti, Mr. Levent. It should be noted in passing that the purpose of this delegation working visit to Djibouti is to inquire about the progress of construction work on the Sultan Abdul Hamid Grand Mosque. During their meeting, Minister Momin Hassan Barre and the Turkish delegation discussed the friendly relation and cooperation between the two brother countries, particularly in the religious field. This meeting will also have enabled the parties to ratify the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding focusing on the identification of partnership. At the end of this meeting, the Minister of Muslims Affairs, a member of the Turkish delegations, went to the Great Mosque Abdul Hamid to see firsthand the progress of the construction's work. It should be noted that the construction works of the Abdul Hamid Mosque are in the process of being finalized, covering an area in 10,000 square meters. This imposing building, built according to Ottoman architecture, is located in the western Saline, just behind the French Institute of Djibouti, entirely financed in the form of a donation by the government of Turkey. This mosque, with a capacity of 5,000 people, will be inaugurated soon. Recall that the construction of this mosque was launched in May 2050 during the official visit to Djibouti of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. It should be noted that the minister was accompanied by his chief collaborators, including the Director General of Diwan Waqf Property, Mr. Elminur Ajama, the Director of Muslims Affairs, Mr. Al-Saleh Ahmed Abdullah, and the Executive Secretary of Islamic High Council, Mr. Okiye. The Minister of Energy in charge of natural resource continued his work and visit in West Africa. So after Ghana, he went to Lagos, the economic capital of Nigeria, where he met the founder of Sahara Group. An interview took place around the possibility of building a storage depot in Djibouti, as well as any other opportunity offered by the Djibouti oil sector. On the 8th March 2019, the Minister of Energy and his delegation had a working meeting with the Chief Executive Officer of Sahara Group, Timmy Top, and his close associate, who shared with them his vision and the strategy of development of the group in the world, and more precisely in the Republic of Djibouti, with the strong ambition to build oil storage facility in the strategic area of the Merjouk. Subsequently, the delegation was welcomed to Ashrami, downstream distribution subsidiary of the Sahara Group, and had a meeting with the director of Ashrami and its staff to expose the activities and distributions company belonging to Sahara Group. Also in Nigeria, the minister and Djiboutian delegation traveled 14 kilometers from Lagos, where they visited in Ejbane power stations, a power plant with a generating capacity of 1,320 megawatts. After a presentation, they had a working meeting with Mr. Kola, general manager of this power station, which use fuel oil and LNG to produce electricity. Finally, in the afternoon of the same day, the minister and the Djiboutian delegation were at Ababa Port for visit the storage depot of Sahara Group, whose storage is capacity 6,000 meters square. As part of the operationalization of the new social protection strategy, Secretary of State for Social Affairs signed a partnership project for the next 2 years. This new memorandum of understanding focused on building the capacity of social working relating to the communication of C4D program through the combining measures of the cash transfer program during this and to protections in emergencies and public finance through this agreement. Finally, the Secretary of for Social Affairs, Mrs. Muna Usman Eden, welcome the establishment of this area of the period because they will allow the vulnerable Djiboutian population out of assassination and poverty. Following the official speech, panel discussions began focusing on regional geopolitics, restructuring and its impact on the current poor system and competition, question how logistics would impact by the geopolitics of the Horn were discussed and dealt with the Minister of Finance, Mr. Ilyas Moussa Douale, the President of Poor and the Free Zone, Mr. Abu Bakr Umar Hadi, the Directors General of the General Reserve Fund and of the State of Oman, Mr. Abdul Salam, and the Director General of the Djibouti Horizon Terminal, Mr. Hussein Ahmed Hussein, and finally the General Manager of the Ethiopian Logistics Services, which is moderate the UNDP representatives in Djibouti, Mrs. Fatima. A neurosurgical mission led by the old professor Ahmed Ashraf, who is a French neurosurgeon currently work at the University Hospital Center in Grenoble in France, began last Thursday with Dr. Dianke, head of department the neurosurgery of the hospital of General Pelletier. His consultation and surgery activities in Pelletier General Hospital. This is the second mission that the team of Professor Ahmed performed in our country. The first mission dates back to November 2018 and has been a real success on a therapeutic level. The objective of this mission is to provide surgical services to patients with pathologies such as hydrocephalus or excess fluid in the brain, malformations of the spine, other diseases. This report of the head of the Department of Neurosurgical Recitations at the Grenoble University Hospital, Mr. Cécile Robert, nurse and anesthetist. These missions of neurosurgeons is aimed to at both children and adults with dysfunctions and requiring a neurosurgical procedure. As part of these preparatives, the consultations practitioner will select a patient who will benefit from on-site surgical operations that were previously leaking in Djibouti. And now let's move on international news. The 3 days of national mourning in Mozambique, where the official record has just been revised to 217 deaths, and where 50,000 people still need to be rescued. According to the government, the first of the 3 UN World Food Program helicopters arrived in Beira. He will be able to host the survivors still trapped in the 6 days after the cyclone Idai. WFP has also started food distributions and plan to assist some 60,000 people in the region. Relief does not know where to return if the cyclone ravaged the country, and the floods have surprised everyone by their magnitude. Here we arrive at the end of this news editions. Thank you for watching us. Have a good night. Goodbye.